Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Do, Ra, me, and today I will be reading Chapter 123 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Suk. Chapter 123 is titled Bastard Demon Child Released. Kushina was regularly treated and seen at the Marine Base Medical Facility throughout her pregnancy. The medical captain took up the sole responsibility of becoming Kushina's primary medical provider. He routinely and regularly checked on both the mother's and infant's health through blood draw and specimen collected from Kushina's inside. He collected blood, cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, and mucus discharges that Kushina's body had released, while running medical tests and procedure on them to check on both attached parties' health. Advising and making sure that Kushina ate the right kind of food and took in the right kind of vitamins to maintain a healthy body and child. By the end of the humid August summer month, Kushina was ready to deliver the larger than normal sized human being inside of her. During that time of no ultrasound and CAT scan, they weren't sure of the baby's sex or actual size, whatnot, and Kushina didn't want to know it right then. All her doctor and Kushina knew was that the growing infant was much larger than that of a normal Asian baby, even larger than the average American babies. A week before Kushina was due to deliver the baby, with constant extreme pain and deliberate kicking and knocking from the infant inside of her, she was admitted into the Navy Marine Corps Medical Facility for observation and treatment because of the abnormal fetus action and reactions. The medical captain talked to her father and mother and informed them of the larger than normal abnormality of the child, and it may lead to some complication for Kushina if she was to naturally deliver the child through her vaginal opening. The best and only option for Kushina was to have a cesarean section, a C-section, which she had to be cut open from side to side and open up like a can of sardines to remove the larger than normal sized child from her. The good captain also mentioned that there are also complications and danger that were involved with this type of procedure as well. He told all of this to Kushina and her parent by her bedside to to take in all the detail and plan for their baby soon to be delivered operation. Several days later, after much pain, heavy breathing, and fetal fluid breaking and discharging on Kushina's part, the water broke, and it was decided that the cesarean had to be performed. The medical facility staff who tended to Kushina's health had to rush her to the operating room then. While the good medical captain readied himself for the delicate sterilized procedure, with her concerned parent waiting outside in the waiting area with her assigned Japanese translator, the good captain went to work in delivering the larger child out of Kushina's stretch-out, carrying stomach. Several large liter bags of clear fluid, IV fluid, were connected and intruded into Kushina's arm and veins. EKG leads were attached to her upper chest plates, arms, leg, ankles, and temple to monitor her vital signs, while her doctor began to inject painkillers into the nipple of the IV bag. He guided Kushina and his staff through each of his step and procedure. He made sure everyone understood what he was doing, and he was pacing himself through the procedure, which he had performed several times before during his younger days as a medical doctor in and for the public-private sector. Once Kushina was under sedation and seemed calm for the procedure to begin, the good medical captain proceeded to cutting her open from her belly up. With the sleeping gas taking his slumber and effect with a sharp silver scalpel in hand, skillfully he began to cut open Kushina's belly from left to right. Once the cross-away incision was dealt with, he began to widen her belly from the midsection and up toward her sternum. His surgical hand could cover in Kushina's blood. He alertly checked her vital sign on the monitor and asked for her status from his assisting staff, making sure everything was okay and normal and making sure that he was good to continue with his procedures. With clear signs and good vitals to continue on, he proceeded. With his bare hand, he stretched open the Kushina's belly and broke open the embryonic fluid sac with a jab of the scalpel. Like a floodgate that was suddenly opened, the warm, clear, brownish fluid rushed out of Kushina's belly and onto the operating table and floor below. The natural, motherly fluid covered his mother's midsection and thigh while absorbing itself into the good captain's medical booties below. With the scalpel placed back in the medical tool tray, the good captain reached inside for the larger than normal baby. Meticulously and carefully he made sure to grasp its head in hand before pulling out the rest of the baby's body out of the sleeping beauty, Kushina Shinigami. Without realizing that he had pulled out at first, he began to use the suction bottle. Without realizing what he had pulled out at first, he began to use the suction bottle to absorb out fluid and excess from the baby's nose and mouth. He made sure to give the child a good slap in the back to get some sound from him. Once the good doctor heard the cry of the infant, he took a good long look at the child that he had delivered. To his and everyone else's amazement, the fair brown-skinned reddish child had a tail, a longer than normal tail on a human baby, more than a human being. Everyone looked on, with their eyes focused and fixed on this demonic long dark tail. The good captain asked for the vitals of Kushina. Without anyone noticing, Kushina was coming into from her unconscious slumber, while her belly was still wide open. The vitals monitoring machine made some screeching sound, alerting everyone back to reality. Kushina tried to sit up from her supine posture, but alertly the medical staff tried to put Kushina back under sedation. While the good captain handed the abnormal infant to one of his nurses to tend to, he proceeded to close Kushina up before she realized what was happening to her. Kushina, in a sedated murmur speech in her native tongue, asked to see her baby. Please, please let me see my baby, she beckoned. No one understood her at first. All they saw was that she was looking in her baby's direction and trying to point toward the demon baby that she had just released into this earth. After a few good long paused moments, the good captain ordered the nurse who was tending to the child to bring the newly delivered child to his mother. With her belly covered in cravats and medical blue mats atop, the child was placed onto Kushina's heaving chest as it looked directly into his mother's hazel eye. Kushina took a good mesmerizing look at her child. In a transient state of limbo, she smiled. More of a smirk, she gestured. Kushina inhaled and took her last deep breath of life on this very earth, and lastly, smilingly said, Shinshin, Shinshin Nagami, as she lay dead from the exhaustion and blood loss of having to give birth to this larger-than-life demon child. The vital sign machine and instrument were screaming and screeching from its siren. Various color lights were flashing. The medical staff rushed to and tried their hardest to bring Kushina back to life. The good captain ordered commands and stepped to help bring her back, while his hand was busy with Kushina's body and gave her chest compression, mouth-to-mouth technique, ear compression, shot of adrenaline, everything they could have humanly done, but nothing could be done to bring the poor female teen child back to life. The good captain had lost his first and last patient. After several minutes of nothing working to bring Kushina back to life, in tears and sobbing, the good captain pronounced the time of death. Firmly he stated, Kushina Shinigami, 16 years old. Japanese girl, death at 0437 on August 17, 1980. Sorry, there's nothing more we can do for this child. I'm sorry. Once the announcement of her death was uttered, one by one the various machines and instruments that were used were slowly shut down. Apologetically, one by one the medical staff left the good captain to himself. With the dead body of Kushina still under the blood-covered hands, her demon child was taken out of the operating room and placed in the nursery. With his tears drowning and soaking his face mask, the good captain looked down at Kushina's face, her hazel eyes still frozen and open. He once again apologized to the recent deceased soul and closed her eyes for her with his blood-stained gloved hands. Alone to himself, the good captain wished he could have done more for Kushina, but it was so terrible that this poor teenage girl had gone through, as he thought of all the time he had come to know her then. She was a decent, respectable, and shy girl. She was positive about her ordeal, even thought someone had hurt her that really bad. How could God let this sort of thing happen to someone as kind as this? The good captain questioned his Christian faith then, beliefs, and understanding of the Lord Almighty. The good captain spent several more minutes with the dead body of Kushina, his mind and thought wandering over nothing, lost in his own filth and lonesome for the tragic loss of his dear patient Kushina. He had thought that she had a good future ahead of her, even with this obstacle in her way. He just knew that she would have overcome that too. He was once again sorry for not being able to save and do anything more for her. Before scrubbing and washing up and having to face her parent about the outcome of their baby's cesarean delivery then, he took his time in washing away the blood of Kushina from his elbow down. He scrubbed over and over again with soap and scrub pad, but her blood seemed to have absorbed itself beneath his underdermis. His arm and hands were red from the heavy scrubbing as he made his way out of the operating room and into the waiting area. Through the double aluminum swinging door, he entered the waiting room, coming face to face with Kushina's anticipating parent. He took a deep breath, having what he wanted to say to her loving parent in mind. He lowered his eye and bowed his head down and stated, "Mr. and Mrs. Shinigami, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we have lost Kushina." Apologetically, he goes on to describing what had happened to Kushina during the operation and the health and condition of their grandson, who was placed in the medical nursery for now. With the translating assistant, the good captain explained and apologized many times for the sudden loss of their baby girl, Kushina. He explained that the military would do for Kushina's body and what they would do for her family in regard to her burial and step that they would take to make sure that her baby was fully supported with medical care and other services. All that didn't matter to her parent then. All they wanted was to see Kushina, to see her body and face. With very little resistance, the good captain escorted the devastated, teary parent into the operating room where Kushina's dead body was covered in white sheet atop aluminum operating table. Also in tears now, Mr. and Mrs. Shinigami, we haven't finished with our finding an outcome yet with Kushina. So far, we have only pronounced the time of her death. We would do an autopsy and get a written document of all that had happened before we can release her body for burial. The good captain further explained what to expect to her saddened parents then. He pulled and lowered the white sheets from the top of her head and stopped at her upper shoulder, only exposing her young, delicate face to her crushed parents. From the sight of her closed eye, dead daughter, uncontrollable, both mother and father burst into louder crying and tears. Still, the good captain apologetically embraced them both in the best way he knew how, making sure not to offend their custom and habit. He then slowly escorted them out of the operating room and away from Kushina's dead body. With the translator's help, he took them to his personal office and discussed and explained further what happened to their daughter. It was here that he told the depressed parents of Kushina's last word and of her baby. He went on to explain that their grandson was born with a tail longer than normal, and that he was born hot and fiery red of sort when he pulled the child out of Kushina's minutes after during the cesarean operation then. From the news of their grandson's feature and description, the traditional Japanese couple was in a state of shock. It seemed so unbelievable. It seemed that the doctor was describing a demon child of some sort. They wanted to see this child for themselves. The good captain also mentioned that the last word of Kushina was Shinshin Nagami. To her loving parent, it sounded like Kushina was saying, God, God's paper. They explained this to the good doctor and Navy captain. They had also asked if Kushina had said anything else to the doctor, and with no gesturing of shaking his head side to side, the good captain walked the demon child, grandparent, toward the nursery area, where several aisles down the hall. Once in the nursery area hallway, then facing the large viewing glass window, the good captain pressed the intercom button and asked one of the nurses to wheel in Kushina's baby for viewing by his grandparent. One of the nurses slowly pushed the larger-than-normal average-sized child toward the waiting viewer. His size and weight seemed to be a handful for the petite nurse. The good captain informed the grandparent that the child was born at 27 inches long and weighed over 23 pounds. Shockingly, really? The child grandparent asked of the good captain. Once the baby was rolled up and facing them, the nurse pulled back the blanket that covered him and exposed the redder-than-normal child to the amazed grandparent. In shock and unable to turn away from the sight of the massive demon-like child, the grandparent looked on, scared out of their wits and mind. They seemed to be at a loss for words. From the shocking sight of his grandparent and looks and airy expression, the good captain advised the attending nurse to return the child to his area of position in the nursery, while he walked the good grandparents back to his office to discuss the future of the child. Once back in his office and seated, the doctor asked what the Shinigami wants to do with the larger-than-normal child that they had just saw, whom whom their late daughter had given birth to. With respect and in soft tone, Mr. and Miss Shinigami, will you guys be taking custody and raising the Kushina's child? He asked calmly. He calmly asked of the grandparent. Taking a moment, and the traditional Japanese couple sat back and quietly talked about themselves amongst themselves in their native tongues and about what they saw and how they should go about dealing with this possessed child. Taking more time and with some disagreement between each other, the odd-looking new grandparent came to a final decision. In extreme sorrow and grief, they had decided to give their demon-like child up for adoption. They explained, "It hurts us very much to do this, to have to do this, good doctor. But with our baby Kushina dead and her baby showing these demonic signs, we are afraid. It hurts us very much to do this, good doctor. But with our baby girl Kushina death and her baby showing these demonic signs, we are afraid that we are unable to look after this child. He may be the spawn of evil and may be the bad luck for all of us." In fear, they further explained their decision, while the translator relayed their concern and comments for the good captain's understanding. Thank you for listening. This is the end of chapter 123. Be on the lookout for chapter 124. Title: Acceptance of the Demon Child. This is Do, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.